Good afternoon. This is the second episode of our series of interviews with mayoral candidates in Hackney. And fundamentally, the driver for us has been really to give opportunity to predominantly, I suppose, Colville Estate residents and Greater Hackney to gain a better understanding of the alternatives. And also to encourage them to take an active part in public life and to vote. So that's really the background. And ideally, we will be releasing the conversations unfiltered, without any editing, later this evening. And so that's the background. If I may start by asking you, tell us a little bit, very briefly, about yourself, your background, your interests, things that matter to you, and then we will move to more, I suppose, public issues. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. I think this is absolutely wonderful initiative that you're doing, like as local residents, connecting with your neighbours around an election, which often gets overlooked. I think local elections are so incredibly important for the issues that they play in people's lives, because that's my background. So I'm Zoe Garbett. I'm the Green Party candidate for Mayor of Hackney. I'm currently a Green councillor in Dalston ward, and I'm a member of the London Assembly. So there's 25 people that are elected at the same time as the Mayor of London to hold them to account. So I'm one of 3 Greens, and I lead for housing, planning and policing. And I got into politics because of my frustrations with the system. I worked in the NHS and in councils for over 10 years, working on health inequalities with children with special educational needs and disabilities, and just got more and more frustrated with austerity and seeing all that money being taken away from local government, and just the injustices I was seeing, which kind of pushed me to get more involved in local politics. So Save Ridley Road, the Morning Lane People's Space campaign, pushing for affordable homes on that site, and then just got more and more involved in green politics because I care deeply about the environmental crisis and natural disaster like happening across, the increasing kind of climate crisis that we see, as well as wanting to see social justice. And that's what I think the Green Party does. And I've just been so honoured to do that as a local councillor every day, as well as a London Assembly member on issues that a range of issues that I care about. But I'm kind of rooted in health and health inequality and health justice. And I see that through the housing crisis, through the oppression of our Black communities from the police, through people's not being able to access community spaces. I see it all driven by people's kind of health and being able to live a good life.
So thank you for that. I mean, these are more, if you like, what drives you from a socio-political standpoint. But as a person,
not me doing much else at the moment.
What do you find interesting? What are your hobbies? What drives you as a person? I mean, if we park the public persona for a moment.
I mean, I think it's also intertwined though. Like, I've always been a really active community member. Like when I was younger, I was a scout, like I'd go camping. I love the outdoors. I love nature. I love being part of a team and doing things. Like, that's what I loved about going on scout camps. I love music. I've spent a lot of time, like I played the flute and the piano when I was younger. I don't really have as much time to do that anymore, but I've been to lots of festivals. I love clubbing, which is why I love Dalston's nightlife and Hackney's nightlife and all its clubs and bars. And I cycle a lot. Like, I love my bike. I see it as a real part of my independence and being able to kind of get around anywhere quickly. But when I worked in the NHS, I cycled 10 miles to and from Hackney to get to Barnet. So I just got really into cycling and did the Prudential, the 100-mile cycle around London twice, which was a big personal achievement and just really good fun. But yeah, what drives me and what I like are things like hanging out with my neighbours and doing stuff locally. And like I said, I've always been driven by kind of health. I did a master's in health psychology after my degree in psychology in Cardiff. So I did my undergraduate in Cardiff and my master's in Bristol. And I love thinking about how people think about their health, how they are excluded from health systems. And that stuff really, really interests me. Trying to think of
So your personal interests are intertwined with you
well, that's why.
politically.
But I think that's what's so lucky about being a politician, like a local politician, like, and that's what I've loved so much about this campaign over the last few weeks and months. Really, I've spent all my time visiting organisations and community groups. I've never felt like I thought I was connected in Hackney, but I now feel so deeply connected to a whole range of organisations, and I feel like that gives you, amongst all the noise that's happening nationally and globally, and things can feel quite dark and difficult for people. I think I find so much kind of joy and hope in.
But you're not
in the
originally from Hackney.
No, I grew up in Somerset with my family and then moved to London in 2010 after university, and then found Hackney because a friend was going to move in for a friend from work, and they wanted to move to Hackney, and I just fell in love with it. I didn't, and I feel like I joined the Green Party around the same time, and I often talk about how people find their tribe at different points in life, and I deeply love my family, but I definitely feel like I found my people when I came to Hackney, and that's the people in the Hackney Greens, the local communities, my neighbours, and I just feel like I found myself and being able to kind of flourish here, and have the real privilege of representing people too.
So Somerset, Cardiff,
Yeah.
Bristol, Hackney.
Yeah,
That's your orbit.
yeah, that's my orbit.
Fantastic. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Green Party has never fully led Hackney or a council of such size
In London, yeah.
in London.
Yeah.
Because I think I may be wrong, but I think their operating budget is something around $1 billion, or they have
billion,
expenditure.
Yeah.
Why? What makes you feel that yourself and the Green Party, given that you have never in London managed such a size of our operation, given its complexity and its complex relationship with Westminster and perhaps even with London Mayor, what gives you the level of confidence that you are able to go to people and say, "Trust me, I can deliver, I can do it"? What is the secret of that confidence?
So I think the Green Party does lead councils in Bristol, Mid Suffolk. We're in kind of joint leadership in some other county councils, and we've done some incredible things there. We're delivering the most affordable homes outside of London in Bristol. We've done some great kind of rewilding projects and won award and stuff around local procurement for local business. We've won an award for how we've led Mid Suffolk Council. The problem is the Green Party isn't very good at talking about that, so people don't hear that from us. And in Hackney, we've just got a really beautiful growing story. So we got 25% of the vote in 2023 and in the general election in 2024. So we know we've got lots of support here, and we've got lots of candidates with a range of experiences. So people who've got lived experiences of all sorts of housing tenures in Hackney, people who've been chief execs. We've got, people of all faiths and none. So I'm really confident that we've got a team that it's so excited about delivering for Hackney. And then I've got a background of delivering services in the NHS and councils. I've managed millions and millions of budgets for the NHS, redesigning services with residents, so around SEND provision or mental health services for children. I commissioned care services for children with life-limiting health conditions, and have held, in my role at City Hall, I hold the Mayor of London to account. I've been in opposition and holding him to account for the last 2 years. And that means I've really got under the skin of what works and what doesn't work. And that's with policing as well as planning. I spend a lot of my time, reading the London plan, scrutinising what the mayor has and hasn't done, listening to, say, market traders and taking that to the Mayor of London and saying where, they've misspent £700,000 in Newham because the lighting's darker than it was before, and getting the mayor to try and sort that out. So I feel, and as opposition councillors in Hackney, we've always done a budget amendment. I sit on audit committee, so I know about the finances. And, we're really, our manifesto is really built with residents. So we're really excited about how we can kind of fix what's broken here in Hackney, but also be that loud voice to government. So yeah, I think it's a combination of my experience, but also our values.
So there is a pool of talent out there that are either already part of your movement party, and then there are a pool of talents that you can reach out and involve them, bring them into this. But how do you? I mean, those that you will reach out, it's an open-ended possibility, you know. But the team that you already have around you in Hackney, I suppose permanent members of your team.
Yeah.
How did you go about selecting them or choosing them, or what was the process that they became
Great question.
part of the election team?
Yeah, so the Green Party is deeply democratic. A lot of the decisions, all the decisions we make as a local party. We have to act within the Green Party's national principles. So we can't, stray too off piste, but we get to run our own democratic selection processes. Every member gets to vote in those elections. So for the mayoral candidate, as well as the candidates we're standing across the borough as councillors, it would have gone out to our whole membership to say this opportunity is available, and then people can put themselves forward. For the first wave and a couple of waves where we're really kind of active in wards, we had like a hustings process that members could come and watch, and that the recording was shared with members, and then it was an open vote. And we've now got about 3,000 members in Hackney, so they voted in and ranked the people around the opportunity. So, and it's a range of people. Like, we've worked really hard to encourage incredible community leaders from all parts of Hackney to stand. And I'm really, really proud of the team that we've got. From, Rachel, who's standing with me in Dalston, has a background. She's got a studio on Ridley Road.
Rachel does what? I'm sorry.
So Rachel Kyoso Gufu is a councillor candidate in Dalston Ward, where I'm running. But she has a studio on Ridley Road and is connected to the community there. And she's running because of how SEND provision has failed her children.
As a councillor?
As a councillor.
Okay.
So yeah, because of her children being excluded, because they haven't had the SEND support, and she's done a lot supporting families with SEND, and really wants to bring that experience to the council. We've just got people across.
Is she your deputy? So forgive my ignorance, but as a councillor, she would also be able to stand as your deputy, or your deputy is someone else?
So we've got people standing across the borough. So we've got 50 candidates standing across the borough as Greens, and then I'm standing for the mayor. If I'm elected mayor, I get to build a cabinet from the elected councillors. So I'm hoping we get at least 9.
Okay.
I'm hopeful we'll get at least 9. And then, what we've talked about a lot in this campaign is that I'd appoint, if Dylan Law is elected in Hackney Downs, I would elect him I'd select him as my deputy. Dylan's grown up in Hackney. He lives on an estate. He lives in a housing association flat, and he cares deeply about estates and repairs and fixing the housing system in Hackney. So that's a portfolio that he's really, really interested in.
And he sort of was selected by the party machinery based on his enthusiasm, or based on solid track record?
Because everything. I think
he's quite young, isn't he? I mean, what did he?
He is. Yeah, he is.
And his track record, I think he's what, early 20s?
He's 20. Yeah.
So what would, I mean, imagine I'm a potential voter, which I am.
Yeah. Imagine you are.
But I mean, if I come to you and say, okay, I understand your background, and I can sense that there is a actual and potential capability, but a young person, of a 20-year-old person, I understand his enthusiasm, which is wonderful. I mean, I think it's great for young people to have enthusiasm, because without it, sometimes very little can be changed. But how would you convince me that I'm going to support him to be your deputy for such a huge organization? No disrespect to him. I'm just trying to.
No, and I think it is a really important question. We should all be held accountable and scrutinised if we're standing to be in such important positions. Dylan's incredibly impressive. Like, his he was part of the youth parliament when he was younger. He's at university. But what I really love about the relationship we've got and the way that we've worked together is he does bring something that I don't. Like, we work, and he brings so much fun and joy to the campaign as well. Like, he's got so much drive and energy, and he's so focused on what needs to change. And he'd be part of a team. You know, we've got the council officers, and there's always, you know, training that we're thinking about for our new councillors, you know, to make sure they can hit the ground running and be the best councillors that they can be. But, you know, Hackney's a young borough, and I think young people need that voice in the room. Like, we often talk about, you know, young people being the future, or young people needing a say. And I think this is such an exciting way for us to do that, that he'd be able to really bring that voice of young people and connect with young people.
So he brings youth, enthusiasm, drive into
He's really
your team.
Smart as well, yeah.
And intelligence, of
yes.
course. But not so much of an experience.
But experience, I guess, he's got lived experience of Hackney. Is his experience, yes, which we value. We've got people who've got all types of lived experience of, yeah, like I just said, you know, their children being excluded from school, or people who are disabled and have been working to make Hackney more accessible. And I think we're trying to think about the broadest way of thinking about experience and how we build a team around that.
Oh, I understand. Thank you for that. And please say hello to him.
Yes, I will. He was interested in coming, actually. He was like, "Shall I join you?"
Now, I wanted, if I may, ask you about your housing policy. Because if I understand correctly, and please correct me if I'm terribly mistaken, that you want the people to be able to buy back their housing units, or the council to buy back their. Now, some of these, I imagine a lot of them have been sold privately. Yeah. Some maybe even now owned by investment funds that they have hundreds of these.
Yeah.
But to do that, would you not need some form of legislative approval, or Westminster legislations enabling you? So that's part one of a question. Part two is, where would you bring the money from?
So,
two simple questions.
Really simple questions. I mean, housing has been the number one issue for people on the doorstep, which is no surprise that you've brought it. It's like the first kind of theme. And it's been, you know, as people talk about how unaffordable the borough is, how their families can't live near them, how people are being, you know, people are being totally displaced from Hackney of how expensive it is. And that's what I challenge all the time as an assembly member, the kind of over-financialisation of the housing system, the fact that it works for developers and landlords and not for people. Like, we have a whole system built around people getting profit. You know, you just described lots of people making lots of money out of the housing system. And we're not getting those accessible and affordable homes that we need. And, you know, we are losing council homes, like either through right to buy or through estate regeneration, when council homes aren't replaced. And that's a huge issue when we need to be providing, you know, we've got a number of families living in temporary accommodation and people being pushed out, primary schools closing. So this is a policy that councils already can do. It's something. So
they don't need Westminster.
No, so Greens and City Hall really pushed the Mayor of London to allow more money to be available for acquisition. So yeah, this is councils being able to buy back homes. It's called buyback because it's you know, implying that they were council homes in the beginning, and then you buy them back off the market. Obviously, we're buying them back for a huge amount more than they are already, which is a big issue. So yeah, we're looking at doing this in a number of ways, getting the maximum amount of grant from the Mayor of London and from the government to do this, but also looking at how we could use our pension funds perhaps to buy back council homes, which we know that other boroughs like Kensington and Chelsea have done. So we know we want to provide as many council homes as possible. I'm not saying that's going to solve it, but the advantage of buybacks is that you get homes quicker, so you don't have to wait years and years for homes to be provided. They're often bigger. You can buy back a family home. Obviously, they're reducing the carbon impact because the home already exists. But there's lots we want to do around providing homes, making sure that we're getting the accessible, affordable homes from new developments and standing up to developers to do that. And then there's also loads of other housing policy, like we really want to push for private rent controls.
Do you have any
stuff like that.
Numbers as to how many buybacks you're
Yeah.
able to do,
So I've
or
always,
you're hoping to do?
yeah. I mean, I will say as much as possible. We obviously need to get in there to understand the numbers. We know that Kensington and Chelsea managed to do 250, like quite quickly.
In their first year of operation?
That's a good question. I don't know how over what period, but yeah, I think they did it recently, so maybe over a couple of years. So it's definitely something we want to get into the council and understand. And we're already, through our budget amendment, we're having discussions with the finance team at Hackney to like make sure we can maximise it. But when I ran to be the Mayor of London and when I've ran to be the Mayor of Hackney before, I do struggle with agreeing to a number just because I don't want to lie to people and I don't want it to get turned into election of just who can say the biggest number gets the most votes, because the Labour Council committed to delivering 1,000 council homes in their 2022 manifesto, and in the data from December they'd only delivered 29. They said they've got plans to deliver them. So I do think it's about us being really honest and transparent and doing, and that's what I'm committing to do as soon as we get in there, being able to, say what we can do and just do as much as possible.
Now, I'm conscious of the time, so I have two more questions and then we can conclude. The first question is that imagine you have been successful. You are the mayor. What would be the key targets or objectives that you would have, during the first couple of weeks? What would you do? Would you go around and say thank you to people, or would you, make sure that you have the right team around you?
Yeah, totally.
What would you do the first 2 weeks?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I want to continue the community engagement and being involved and be as accessible as possible to residents. I'm a huge part of the elected people work for the residents, and want to continue to do that, visiting as many community groups as possible and hearing about people's ideas, successes, and what's not working. I also want to go out and visit council services, so go on a repairs visit, really understand what's working and what's not for the repairs team, because sorting out housing repairs is our number one priority, because we hear that time and time again, that people get multiple surveyors, things aren't being fixed, they're not taking a strategic, a bigger picture view on people's repairs, like on a block. We also want to kick off our Who Owns Hackney review, which is all about the space in Hackney. So whether that's council owned or privately owned, we want to do a review of empty space across Hackney and get as much of that into community use as possible. Because a number of groups that I've been to, food banks, night shelter, domestic violence charities, all of them look me in the eye at the end and they're like, we could do so much more if we had space. And I know we're sat in your wonderful hall here, and just the amazing stuff that you've managed to do in this space. There's loads of community halls sat boarded up across Hackney and people crying out for them. We had a community meeting in one during this campaign, but the council didn't open it, so we had to have the meeting outside, and then they came to lock it up. And we
so
were
they are
just
boarded up because there is insufficient money to be allocated.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
and you will have the money. You're
it's
giving that pledge.
I think it's a number of things. I think some of them are open and functioning. Just the system isn't working to get them into use. And yes, I am committing to try and do as much as possible to get the ones that are not operating into operation, either working in collaboration with organisations or partners to get it back up and running. Because I think, people are crying out for these spaces.
And hopefully those that are operating to help them grow.
Totally, absolutely. And then we really want to do stuff like you've got here, that we really want to work on food pantries and food co-ops and those networks through like tenants and residents associations. Because I know I mentioned this before we went onto recording, but I've been a chair of a tenants and residents association. We've got a hall. We do community iftars and pantomimes and community events, and there's really affordable stay and play for children. I just think these spaces are so important for people to come together.
My final question. I have some degree of familiarity with the national politics of Green Party. Would you, or have you, brought that into the context of the local election in any way, or have you tried to entirely separate them?
Oh, no, we're very connected. And like I said earlier, we operate within the same principles, like the philosophical basis that we have as a party. And I've, been heavily involved in the development of our manifesto, which is based on our national priorities and our national values. like I said, we're very democratic. In 2019, I worked on the Green Party's drug policy by taking an enabling motion to conference, and then worked with health professionals, people who'd lost friends and families due to the drug war, and worked on a policy around the legalization and legal control and regulation of all drugs. So that's kind of our national policy. So in our local manifesto, you'll see us talk about that, and you'll say on a local level, this is something we'd make sure that we're reducing drug harm by making sure that public services are available for people who use drugs, that naloxone's available as a reversal if people are overdosing. So our local manifesto sits within
And
our
international politics, did you bring that in any way into your local election?
Yes, because we know that Hackney is beautifully diverse. We've talked a lot about migration in our manifesto, because on the doorstep when migration has come up, or in community groups, it's been that people are concerned about their neighbours with some of the awful changes that the government's brought in, I think have really terrified people around their status. So a lot of what we've brought in our manifesto are around supporting people locally, being a welcoming borough, being a borough of peace and justice. We have talked about divesting pension funds from companies complicit in the genocide in Gaza, but any war crimes, and making sure that Hackney's council workers' pension funds, and we know the workers want that. When they're surveyed, majority of them want that to be divested. So, because we know that those international issues make people, their family are connected to those areas, but also it makes people, they want us to be as full of peace and justice.
Thank you. On that note, I need to thank you for giving us your time. It certainly has been interesting to listen to you, and I hope our conversation will encourage people to go out and vote.
Yes, people have got to go and
be
vote.
active in public life.
And bring their ID and maybe stand for election in 2030.
Yes, let's hope for that. Thank you, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.